Ron, thanks for joining me. There's a lot of great topics that obviously I want to get into here, but the first one, I mean, you've spent so much of your life and so much experience around the game of baseball. I guess how did it kind of start with you getting interested in it, and what kind of started in terms of you falling in love with the game?
Well, I lived in Boston and Buffalo. My mom had asthma, so we moved out to Arizona, which happened a lot to people who had asthma because bronchial problems, that low humidity. So if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be sitting here. I mean, as a baseball coach, because out there the weather's great, and that's where I played my high school ball, my college ball, and that's where I started my college coaching career at University of Arizona in Tucson in 1966. It all started because I was out there in Arizona in it's baseball country.
It just kind of happened.
Kind of happened.
You had a few stops before Mississippi State, and obviously were very well established with a College World Series appearance with Georgia Southern. But what was that first experience in Starkville like when you came here and when you were, contemplating taking this job?
Well, I coached in Arizona and coached the University of New Mexico, University of Miami, Miami-Dade, Georgia Southern before I came to Mississippi State, and I did 2 tours of Mississippi State. And it seemed like every job I took, I was younger than most people think a head coach should be. I was 27 when I was a head coach at Georgia Southern, and some of the players were 24 or 25. But when I came to start from Mississippi, just like at Georgia Southern, when I took the job there, and the University of Georgia, I took it without having to recruit a team because they brought me in late. And so I did not have any access to recruiting. When I came at Mississippi State in 1976, they flew me up November to an LSU Mississippi State football game. Carl Maddox interviewed me there. Didn't nearly interview. They offered me the job on the phone and told me that I had it. And I just didn't know if I wanted to do it because, I was at Miami-Dade, University of Miami with Ron Fraser, and he was thinking about retiring, and I could have stayed there and become the head coach of Miami. But they brought me back again to Jackson to watch the Ole Miss and Mississippi State football game, and went back and decided that I was going to go ahead and take the job at Mississippi State at the age of 31, and my salary was $15,000 a year.
Starkville's got to be a lot different from Boston and Arizona, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I like to coach in college towns. I really do. Statesboro, Georgia, I spent 4 years, and then Miami, of course, is a big town, but I'm flexible. But I've lived in Starkville, Mississippi now, off and on, about close to 37, 38 years, yeah.
Yeah, it's become home. And the baseball side of things, almost 1,400 career wins, over 1,100 at Mississippi State, countless trips to the postseason, 8 College World Series appearances, considered the father of SEC baseball. That's an unimaginable amount of experience and success kind of in the game. What's been the biggest lesson that you think you've learned through it all?
Well, I didn't name myself the father of SEC baseball. Sometimes I'm introduced. I do a lot of speaking at high schools and colleges and baseball clinics. The godfather of SEC baseball. But when you spend that many years, 31 years as a head coach in the SEC and didn't get fired, you're going to win a lot of games, and you're also going to lose a lot of games. I think I got more wins than any other coach, men or women, in the SEC, but what people don't realize, they also got more losses because nobody lasts 31 years in the SEC. I did, and I'm thankful for that. My health has been good, except having a cold right now. It's been a great experience. Actually, 9 College World Series, because I was the third base coach for University of Arizona in 1966 as a graduate assistant. 4 different schools, and things have come a long way since then. Facilities, stadiums, radio, TV, media, internet. I mean, we've come a long way from the time I first started coaching at the University of Arizona in 1966.
Yeah, I bet. And, your relationship with players, I'm sure that's, close to the top of the list in terms of priorities or things that you've kind of cherished throughout your years of coaching. I know you write handwritten letters to former players and staff members. How many is that per year?
You don't want to know. I did 7 tours with the national team, 2 as a head coach, and 2 Olympic teams as assistant. And I birthday, anniversary, if I know what that date is, and Christmas cards. And then 11 years coaching the Cape Cod League and the Prospect League and all the others. It's all done by hand. I don't like to type letters to players. I do it by hand. My handwriting is not as good as it used to be, but it's a lot of work. But they were part of my life, and I just want to stay a part of their life. And so I'm kind of known for keeping in touch with people. And a lot of coaches, the guys leave, and they don't even. I'm sure they say goodbye, but they don't stay in touch with them. I'm pretty good at staying in touch with people.
Well, I think the thousands of thank you letters per year would be definitely kind of indicative of that. So we mentioned all the experience and your ties to Mississippi State. And when you retired in 2008, you were pretty vocal about kind of the situation here and vouching for Tommy Raffo before they ended up going with John Cohen in that direction. But then you spent over a decade with UAB before coming back here on a staff basis in 2020. What was that reconciliation process like, and what's it been like kind of since then?
Well, it all worked out for the end. I mean, at that time, I wanted Tommy Raffo. I was at Mississippi State for many years with a lot of success, and I thought it's my right to name my former player and assistant coach. Everybody loved him. The players loved him, and as a head coach, and unfortunately, the athletic director at that time decided he wanted to do a nationwide search, and he brought John Cohen in, who's a good friend of mine, now the athletic director at Auburn, and we had a kind of parted ways there for a while, but we got back together. And in fact, he hired me. Actually, when you use the word hired, I don't charge him for what I'm doing, a special assistant AD, because I'm not in town very much. And John wanted me to come back in the athletic department. So, and when Brian Shoup, my former assistant, and he was at UAB, retired, I knew it was time to come back home. I have a beautiful home out in Browning Creek in Starkville. I want to develop that property there. And so I enjoy what I'm doing now with Zach Zellman, but John Cohen is now at Auburn University, AD, and I think I went through 8 athletic directors while here, 7 or 8 football coaches, 7 or 8 presidents, 7 or 8 basketball, but that's what athletics is all about in college. So, but I bounce around pretty good, and we stay in contact with all the people that were part of my life, especially my players. I think it's important to remain in a situation where they know they can call me at any time.
Yeah, and it seems like that's worked out for you well. So I'm sure you've been tossed out of a lot of games. Do you remember kind of the angriest you ever were when you've gotten thrown out? It doesn't have to just be at Mississippi State.
Well, I got tossed up in Havana, Cuba, back-to-back nights by 2 umpires that didn't speak English. I think there was a communication problem, but I mean, now there's not many getting tossed. You don't get tossed very much with game review. And Chris Lamonis always kids me. Said the coaches get on. I mean, the fans get on me because I don't go out there and argue as much as you did. I said, well, you got to tell them that there's, other than balls and strikes, everything else is review. Makes the umpire's job a lot easier, but you have to have a fine art to it. But there's times I actually went out and wanted to get thrown out, or I did not want to get thrown out. I just said the wrong thing at the wrong time. But there are times I went out there and I just wanted to get my 2 cents in, because I did not allow our players on the USA team, summer baseball, wherever I coached, to talk to an umpire. Couldn't even say a word. So they had a signal with me, I need some help. So I don't have my players ever get thrown out. If anybody can be thrown out, it'd be me. And we can afford me not being there, not a number 4 or 5 hitter. And so there were times I went out and actually purposely got thrown out, maybe because it was too cold or too hot. We were down by 10, 11 runs, and I wanted to go back to my office, get a cigar going. So I go out there in front of him, and nobody can see it. Nobody can hear what you're talking about. And I just convinced the umpire I'm out there not to yell and scream at him, but let's yell and scream, and I want you to feel like I'm mad at you and you mad at me, but this is a play we're doing because you got the call right. I just want to go home.
I can't even imagine. I mean, so it sounds like the Cuba toss or the back-to-back tosses might be it, but I mean, if you don't even know why you're getting thrown out, I mean, that's got to be even more frustrating.
In America, you can talk. When all the years I did USA Baseball, most of the time was a Japanese plate umpire, or Korean, and they're good people and all. But if you have an argument, you bring a translator out. Well,
sure.
You can't have a translator thrown out of the ball game. So it's tough arguing. I've been in the Dominican Republic now 12 years doing clinics all over the island. Those kids don't speak any English. I have to have a translator. It takes forever to talk because you got to say a couple of sentences. He talks. And it's not easy. And when you get thrown out of a ball game because the interpretation maybe from the translator to the umpire was not what I meant to say, okay?
Sure. I'm sure there's been a lot of recruiting stories. Any favorite recruiting stories that have stuck out to you the most? And
I made a lot of home visits, a lot of time on the road. I think on that Thunder and Lightning, which was the big ESPN, which is a true story, I went down to see Will Clark play at Jesuit High School, and he was a star, and we were battling LSU and others for him. And so I wanted to go down and see him for myself in a ball game. And I heard a lot of good things about him, so I got there and it was raining. So they didn't take batting practice in the outdoor cages. But they started the game. And during the course of the game, he was a 3 or 4 hitter, and he got a walk 4 times intentionally. So I came back, and the coaches all said, what do you think about Will Clark? I said, I didn't see him swing the bat. And they walked him 4 different times. That's an interesting story. But
that one, hey, I mean, it ended up working out in the long run, even if you drove all that way just to see him in a uniform. We know all about the time with baseball, but what are some of your hobbies kind of outside of coaching baseball, some of the things you like to do?
Well, you show me a coach that has a lot of hobbies, I'll show you a bad coach, okay? I kid the coaches sometimes. I walk in the coaches' offices, they have golf clubs in their office. That's not good because that's 5 hours of non-productive time. I'm very careful with my time. I'm very, very time-oriented, very productive. But in regard to hobbies, it's, I really don't. I mean, I've traveled all over the world. I've been thankfully blessed with good health. I mean, Japan, to Nicaragua, Cuba many times. Maybe that's my hobby. I mean, my job has basically been my hobby. It's just impossible to do what I do as a former president of all the coaches, to do all the attacking of the NCAA and doing the things I did in my coaching career. I just couldn't have hobbies. I mean, I didn't have time. I was at the office on the phone writing letters. And so a hobby to me is something that you like to do, and I like to read. And if you come to my house, it's a big library, reading airports and hotels, and on the road sometimes even driving highway patrols, not listening to this, but on a 4-lane highway sometimes, in the afternoon I can put the book up near my steering wheel and drive. So people will see that and they think I'm a little different. And, if you want to be honest, I mean, that's probably my biggest hobby is reading. All nonfiction. I don't read any fiction. Only nonfiction. The only fiction I do read is Jon Grisham, a good friend of mine, who was a big fan of Mississippi State baseball.
That was going to be the next thing I was going to ask you. We've seen you around town reading, so it's nonfiction or Jon Grisham. Those are kind of the 2 genres that you're most into. There have been some rumors about the Ron Polk kind of household, that there's not many pieces of furniture or a lot of memorabilia, all that. Are there any, what's the Ron Polk casa kind of look like?
It's fully furnished, everything. My old house just had a bed and a chair and a table, and because I never cooked a meal in my life. I got a beautiful kitchen in this new house I have out at Browning Creek, and the oven's never been on, the burner's never been on, the refrigerator just has Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi in it. I eat out all the time, and when I eat out, I read a book or read the newspaper when I'm eating. I just don't eat, and I always got 2 or 3 things going. And so I'm a big cigar smoker, so sometimes at the office I want to get a cigar going, so I light the cigar up and walk and bring a book out there, so I'm getting 3 things done at the same time. So I've been that way all my life, basically trying to be productive every minute that I'm awake every day.
There we go. Do you have a favorite snack when it comes to snacking?
No, I keep my weight down because if I snacked, I'd be heavy because I have a tendency I could. But no, I don't snack at all. My snack is cigars.
Sure. All right. There you go. And when back to the baseball thing to kind of go full circle here, when you first started at Mississippi State, or even before that in the mid-'60s to now, I mean, the college baseball landscape has just totally changed and has grown, and you're a huge reason for that as well. But what are your thoughts on kind of the evolution of the game from when you first started as an assistant to kind of where the game is now?
Well, even when I started coaching at the University of Arizona, they went to New Mexico and then Miami-Dade and Georgia Southern. I always envied the Southeastern Conference. I thought the SEC could really be a great baseball conference. It wasn't when I first joined because they had rules, like 12 different rules that were restrictive for coaches and players. And I called them the Dirty Dozen. As a young coach, I went on the attack, athletic directors and presidents, and said, why do we have these rules? This league could be very, very powerful in college baseball. You got the weather, you got large schools, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. I mean, we're not doing anything. We're not getting the regionals or College World Series. We're just not getting there. And we fought every one of them, and with the help of some of the coaches, we defeated them all. And I always felt like if you can work hard in the SEC, you're gonna be somewhat successful. But Mississippi State was kind of the school that started it all. We were the first school that had just full-time baseball coaches. No other school had that. When I first took the job in '76, all the other coaches in the SEC had another job. Most of them were football recruiters, like Jake Gibbs at Ole Miss, and I think Dave Fuller at Florida, and just on, or another job. And so Mississippi State emphasized baseball, always has, but they had struggled a little bit in regard to getting to various tournaments, and I think they just needed some youngsters to come in here and get these rules changed. That's what I am. I hate rules that I can't figure them out. And I hate rules that have no common sense. And I don't mind rules as long as everybody has the same rule. But I've been battling the NCAA forever on rules for baseball, to helping kids and coaches in our baseball programs so we can thrive, because people love college baseball. It's a national pastime. We're the second largest producer of revenue for NCAA championships. A lot of people think football is number one. They don't get a dime for football. It goes to bowls, the conferences, and schools. Men's basketball is way ahead of us. We'll never catch them because of the venues and TV network. But baseball is number two. We were dead last in everything. We had 7 rules that no other sport had. And I went in and attacked, and they took our graduate assistant away from us and gave it to women's crew, and I blew my stack. And I just feel like somebody has to stand up and fight when people are making rules don't understand what's going on. And unfortunately, we still have the NCAA, and I have great respect for the people there, but at the same time, some people in the NCAA are there because they want to get on these committees. They want to fly everywhere first class, and they don't go to Detroit for their convention. They go to all kinds of resorts, and it's a great thing for them. But understand that you got to listen to the coaches. We're the people that know what's going on. Athletic directors and conference commissioners. When they make rules and all of a sudden they say something, we're going to do this, and everyone says, well, did you get some support from the coaches? And they said, no, we're the presidents. We're the ones that make the rules. And great respect. Mark Keenum, our president, is great. But there's some presidents right now that, making some rules that make no sense at all. They may be smarter than me by a lot, but I have some common sense.
A few things that stand out to me from that. Number one, these coaches that you were talking about back then that had to have other jobs. Now most, if not all, SEC coaches make over $1 million a year, which is insane and well-deserved, obviously, with all the talent and how successful the league is. Number two, you're very vocal about things that you think should be changed with the NCAA. And if you were to be in charge to fix it, if they gave Ron Polk the keys and was like, hey, it's up to you, what's the main thing that we need to fix right now with regards to kind of college baseball and the NCAA and beyond, what would be the first thing you'd fix?
I'd spend a lot of full days, I'll tell you that, figuring out what goes first. The NIL has got to be changed. Portal's got to be changed. That's relatively new. I think basically they have their head on straight in regard to what they want to do with enforcement, but sometimes the enforcement is not done in a fair and impartial manner, unfortunately, just like anything else. But there's a lot of things I would do in regard to, I just want them to get the conference commissioners, athletic directors, and coaches on the same page. And even, I think they have a player group now that comes in, boys and girls, and visits with them. But I want them to listen. To listen because we grew up in sports. So most of these presidents didn't play athletics. Most of them didn't. Some did. And they don't understand what athletics is all about, how important it is to kids, especially in high school and junior high, and development, the work ethic, the responsibility, the leadership traits you get. And there's a lot of value in athletics. And they make rules that all of a sudden we look at them, read about them in the paper and said, that's not very smart. And then next year they change it and they said, well, why did you put that in? And nobody can come up with any answer. But I'd hate to be critical of the NCAA, but I have been. I don't go on, I do a lot of speaking. I don't blast the NCAA as much as I used to. But they have good people there, and they have caring people, but I just think basically they don't listen very well to the people in our business.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of the NIL and all the stuff with that, with the portal news. Yeah, so talking about reform with that, there's definitely probably a lot of people that agree with you. I kind of want to finish with the current state of Mississippi State baseball, from the national title to the last couple of years, not even advancing to the SEC tournament. Where do you kind of think that, Bulldog baseball stands right now, and what's kind of your confidence level that they could get back to, where they were a few years ago and where they were when you were here as well?
Well, let's first understand that, and I speak to, in my job with Zach Zellman, I just visit with all the coaches and all the sports and the student athletes, and I always tell them that you're in a tough league. I mean, this is tough. This is the best conference in the country, athletically, top to bottom, in tennis and golf and swimming, whatever. And baseball is one of them. And so it's tough to maintain unless you have a lot of budget with NIL now, and there's some teams that are really putting money into buying and selling players, which is not right. It's not easy to maintain your program because the roster changes so much now with the portal, in and out, in and out. The development of players now is not as important as it was with me. I used to bring a kid in, not even on a scholarship, and redshirt him his freshman year, and bring him along. By his junior year, he's a starter in the lineup. But that doesn't happen anymore because the portal, he'll be gone if he doesn't play early. But Chris Lamonis and I are great friends. He does a great job. He's got a great staff. And he got off to a good start as a coach, and I think he was humbled the last 2 years. And unfortunately, we had some injuries, which happens. Everybody has them, but it seemed that affected the pitching staff a lot. And then we had a problem just basically pounding the zone. If you don't throw strikes in the SEC, you can have a tough time. And I think also, we got such a great fan base, and people are so interested in Mississippi State baseball. It does put a lot of pressure on our kids, especially at home games, to produce. And I think some guys just try to do too much. It just steamrolled, and it just cost them 2 years of not getting to the SEC tournament. But I like the group he's got in now. I go out, I don't bother him at all, but I watch some of the scrimmage games and watch some of the practices. I've met most of the kids, but we got a lot of new players, and I like them. I look at them, and they get good-looking athletes, and I think we have a chance. But let's understand, everybody else in the SEC is good too. There's no easy weekend, and I know it's a cliche, but there's no easy weekend in the Southeastern Conference in baseball.
Sure. Well, Ron, thanks so much for taking the time. I can't thank you enough. I really enjoyed sitting down with you, and I'll see you around this fall and then this spring.
Good to be with you.